What voice do you fancy adopting?
I don't know really. My posh one or my common one?
Parkinson's isn't a killer. My grandfather wasn't killed by it. But he might as well have been.
So Grandad is my dad. He was an amazing man. I can say the best dad in the world without any sort of being biased or anything.
That while everyone knows you suffer from Parkinson's syndrome, there is the damage to your brain has not affected your mental capacity at all. It hasn't.
I hope not.
You hope not? It has affected your movement. It has affected your speech. It has affected your facial expression, but it is not.
Parkinson's disease is caused when the dopamine-producing neurons in our brain start to die. As a result, the body begins to shake. The brain struggles to talk to the body, progressively getting worse and worse. This is what happened to Walter Bray, my grandfather.
I think it was around about 2000, year 2000. He was about 70 then. We were driving along and I noticed his thumb was going like that all the time. And although I knew nothing about Parkinson's, I knew at that point that's what it was. It's something sort of in here told me. It progressed very, very slowly. Well, I didn't see it progressing. Maybe other people did because I saw him every day. But then it was after a few years, I guess, I did notice he was doing odd things every now and then. And his face became very, very impassive. He'd always had a ready smile, but suddenly he hadn't. He'd lost it. And he looked as though he was in a thumping bad mood all the time. And that was horrible.
I was working elsewhere, and one day what happened was I'd gone home, and I noticed that Dad's thumb was shaking a little bit, and I knew there wasn't something right, but nobody said anything to me. The understanding, I think, is because I was the youngest, everyone just thought, don't tell Pauline because she'll be really upset and she won't deal with it, blah blah blah. But the truth was, I already knew. So one day what happened was I used to take my dad down the pub on a Sunday, and we went to the pub on a Sunday, and I remember sitting there with my dad, and I said to him, I said, Dad, I know you've got Parkinson's disease. And he went, yes, I have, love.
Parkinson's is a disease associated with old age. However, this isn't always the case.
Problems with my shoulders, like pains in the back of my shoulders, and I didn't associate that with Parkinson's, even though my dad had it, because I thought Parkinson's was like an old age disease, shaking and all that kind of thing. I didn't associate the pains in my shoulders with it, but apparently it's a classic sign. I didn't know.
Parkinson's can strike at any age. Back to the Future star Michael J. Fox was diagnosed with Parkinson's when he was 29 in 1991.
When things weren't going that well, I used to always hate when some young guy about my age would drive by in this, those sports cars, really fancy sports car with the big tires and everything. I used to hate those jerks. So I went out and bought one.
Yeah.
It's great.
To get even with it.
But Parkinson's can be so much more damaging to the ones that love you.
One day, after he'd had his meal, he used to sit in his armchair opposite the television and he ate his meal, and he tried to scrape the pattern off the plate. He'd scrape it. And I took it away from him in the end. So he took his shoe off and started chewing that. Oh, that didn't go down very well either. Another time we were in the car, I was going about 60, and he opened the door. He wanted to get out. And I was panic-stricken. I was driving along and trying to pull over, pull him back in the car again. And I put the locks on, and he got so furious with me because he hated being locked in the car. He felt trapped. So that resulted in another row. We had quite a few of those. So many things he did. So many painful things.
Can you remember the good times?
Not really, no.
Eventually, it all just became too much.
In the end, he had to go into a home because I couldn't look after him. It was wearing me out. And anyway, I went to see him in the home. And he'd got quite a nice unit. He'd got a little bathroom sort of recessed off his main room. And he thought he'd have a shave. So there he is, mirror in front of him, shaving foam. No, wrong place. He put it round his reflection in the mirror. So the mirror was wearing shaving foam all round the shape of his face and across his nose. And he was going like that and wondering why it wouldn't come off. And that was very painful to watch.
Parkinson's is hereditary, which naturally made me scared for my future.
My right bicep and my right shoulder was the predominant pain for the last couple of years, or the last probably 3 or 4 years actually. I've recently developed some kind of, I don't know, sciatica is the only thing I can describe it as, just in the last couple of months down my left leg. But again, trying to sort of work that out and get that fixed. So I think it's just the pain. My current symptoms are the pain in my shoulder and my arm and my legs and my walking. My walking's got terrible in the last couple of years.
Although I'm all right now, it is something I'll always be thinking about as the years go by. And though I'm still here, my grandfather isn't.
I was staying at Tracy's flat because she and her sisters had gone over to the Isle of Wight for a week's holiday. So I said, well, I'll go and stay at the flat and then I can go and see Dad every day or have him back to the flat. So that's what I did. And it was a lovely, lovely weekend. And I went and picked up Wally, took him back to the flat. And I had control of his tablets, so I managed to maintain him on an even keel. And it was like having him back, albeit briefly. And he was strutting about like he used to, taking his shirt off, because he used to love taking his shirt off because he had such a lovely body. And he was out in the garden, just tidying up her plants. And I have that to remember, which is nice, because I took him back to the home and then I had to go back to our home in Worthing. And I was down there and at home and the phone rang, about 10:30 at night, and it came up as Wickham House. And I felt sick because I thought, I know what this is going to be. And I answered the phone and they said, oh, Mrs. Bray? Yeah. Well, your husband, he was very awkward this evening and he kept pacing up and down and standing at the window and he wouldn't settle at all. So we sent him back to bed and he's dead. And that was how they told me. Very abruptly. And it sort of stunned me. And I said, oh, thank you. And finished the call.
At about 11:30, I got a phone call from my mum saying, he's gone. And I said, what is it, Mum? And she said, your dad's gone. And I was like, oh, okay. So all I did was I got up and I threw some clothes on. And I drove down to where my dad is, not my mum, because my mum lived miles away from the home.
So we went to Wickham House, and of course Pauline would be there for some time, and she'd come from Sittingbourne, or here rather. Anyway, we went into the home. This night supervisor was fast asleep at his station, as usual. And one of the helpers said, do you want to go and see him? And Pauline and Joan said, no, Mum, you stay there. We're going to make sure it's all right for you to see him. And I don't know what they saw, they never told me. But they came back and said, it's just as well you didn't go first.
Me and my sister, we went into the door first, and my dad was lying on the bed, but he was all in a disarray. The sheet was hanging off, his pyjamas were all over the place, and he just looked He looked like he'd just fallen out of the ceiling and flumped onto the bed.
Anyway, I went in to see him and they'd laid him out on the bed and tidied him up. And I just knelt on the floor beside him and just kissed his forehead and told him I was sorry that I hadn't been there for him, because I'd always promised I'd be there to hold his hand.
And my dad, bless him, he'd lost a lot of weight. And over the last couple of years, his face was full of anguish, you know, like really angry. And it wasn't like my dad at all. But he lay there and you know, he'd only been gone probably about, I don't know, about an hour. But his whole face was smooth and he almost looked like 20 years younger and just at peace, total peace.
I opened the window and just leaned out of it and sort of said goodbye to him that way. I turned back to him, knelt down, and kissed him once more and said goodbye to him.
Didn't cry. The only time I cried was the day of the funeral, but other than that, I didn't need to cry. He'd gone. But there was no more pain.
I could have comforted him, because he's waiting for me. He stood at the window saying, I'm waiting for the wife. She never turned up. That was it.